Will Martin Luther King Jr. finally get his turn in the Hollywood spotlight? You're watching Beyond the Trailer's review of Selma.
You march those people into rural Alabama, it's gotta be open season.
May I have a word?
There's no word to be had.
The people. The people. The people. The people.
There are 70 million people watching.
These pictures are going around the world.
We must make a massive demonstration.
White, black, and otherwise. Come to Selma.
I heard about the attack of innocent people. I couldn't just stand by.
Looks like an army out there.
Malcolm X has a movie. Nelson Mandela has a movie. Gandhi has a movie. William Wallace has a movie. Countless movies have been made about people who face seemingly insurmountable odds, yet still manage to change the world, driven by a desire to see their people no longer suffer. So, where's the Martin Luther King Jr. movie? Why has Hollywood ignored one of the most important historical figures in the 20th century, who has been honored in countless ways everywhere else, including a national holiday? Well, the sad reason is that Luther's descendants have the rights to his speeches under a tight lockdown, and licensed those rights exclusively in 2009 to DreamWorks and Warner Brothers, who are currently just sitting on them, after Oliver Stone decided not to direct an MLK Jr. film after all. Yes, the Kings have a dream of getting paid. So while they haven't come out against Selma, they haven't supported it either, and the filmmakers here were forced to alter every single line that Martin Luther King Jr. spoke in public, or else be sued. But while the Martin Luther King Jr. estate has powerful sway over his legacy, there are powerful forces at work behind Selma. Oprah Winfrey is a producer on the film and a co-star, which lends considerable credibility to the project. And on top of that, Selma is also being produced by the team behind 12 Years a Slave, Brad Pitt's Plan B shingle headed up by Dee Dee Gardner and Jeremy Kleiner. After dominating at last year's Oscars, the 12 Years team clearly has some strong awards connections, which has already resulted in numerous Golden Globe nominations for Selma, including the first ever nomination for a black female director, Ava DuVernay. Is Martin Luther King Jr. still opening doors for his people? Selma is also relevant today because of the nationwide protests over the deaths of Michael Brown and Eric Garner, where there is a struggle between nonviolent and violent protesters. Oprah has already told the morning talk shows that she hopes Selma will inspire protesters to lean more towards nonviolence and to realize that strong leadership and a clear message are vital to getting results. Then there's David Oyelowo, the UK actor who American audiences are certainly familiar with, but probably still can't name-check. Will this be a star-making turn, or go largely unrecognized a la Idris Elba's Mandela?
Having now seen Selma, I can say that it's not only one of the top 10 films of the year, but one of the top films in recent memory. It really does deserve to have the kind of Oscar nominations that Birdman, Boyhood, and the Grand Budapest Hotel are enjoying. And it's truly tragic, even more so, that David Oyelowo and especially Ava DuVernay are not nominated for their work. Is the Academy racist because of that? Well, that's a really difficult and potentially loaded question. But I think the bigger culprit is the marketing campaign for the film. Yes, once again, publicity kills another movie. But there's a lot more at stake this time than just entertainment value. And when I say publicity, I mean the awards campaign, but also the marketing for the general public. Because let's face it, seeing Selma based on the advertising material seems like a chore. It seems like a TV movie, as I stated in my trailer review. The poster is just the back of Martin Luther King Jr.'s head. I mean, how uninspiring is that? Who says, that's the movie I want to see right now? That's so totally a rental, and this is so not totally a rental type of movie. And I don't understand why Hollywood, society, and in particular the education system refuse to define Martin Luther King. And when you see this movie, you see how horrible that is and how this is a man who's been robbed of his legacy. I mean, forget the Oscar nominations for the film. The much bigger crime is that we do not remember what happened here. Now, this is a film that works on two levels, and the first one I want to discuss is its emotional qualities. I haven't had this kind of an emotional reaction to a movie since The Passion of the Christ, and I recently detailed what a strong emotional reaction I had to that film. Now, The Passion of the Christ still had the bigger reaction. And Selma isn't quite at that level, but it's darn close. And Ava DuVernay does an incredibly impressive job of not just humanizing Dr. King, but his followers. That's one thing that makes this movie truly special, that it's not just, oh, it was all Martin Luther King Jr. It shows not only how his support team helped him, but the people who risked their lives to follow him and march with him. And it shows the bravery of a nonviolent movement. It's incredible to watch. And there are similarities to, Jesus Christ's sacrifice, and he also turned the other cheek. It's just incredibly powerful. Oprah Winfrey has an amazing scene with trying to register to vote. It's just brilliantly done. And then the story of Jimmy Lee Jackson and his family will move you beyond words. I think everybody should know that man's name, and the fact that they don't just once again underlines how little attention is being paid to the civil rights movement, and that these memories are not being carried forward. Now, I said this worked on two levels. So on one, there's the emotional situation that hits you right out of the gate. I don't want to give it away, but the movie made me jump in one of its opening sequences. It just rips your heart out. Fittingly, it's not sensationalist. It's very real, actually, incredibly well grounded. But then it's also an amazing political film, and it reminds me a little bit of Lincoln, where it shows the backroom politicking. And of course, the movie shows what a brave person Martin Luther King Jr. was, and what a great speaker he was. But I've never before seen, or even seen it hinted, that he was a great political tactician, which he clearly was. And I can't believe that after having gone through the education system of this country and, being plugged into the media and celebrating a bunch of Martin Luther King days, no one has been able to explain to me until this film why voting was so crucial to the civil rights movement. And it's done eloquently here, beautiful. And they really show the genius and why 100 years after the Civil War, Martin Luther King was finally able to find a way to crack this blockade that had been put up by discrimination. I mean, it's just brilliant, a brilliant piece of politicking. And it also underscores the importance of getting involved in your community and trying to work within the system instead of just railing against it, as I think sometimes people tend to do, and they're always unsuccessful. And this movie shows that you're only going to succeed if you wrestle with the beast. And also, LBJ. A lot of people have criticized this film for not a good depiction of our former president. I think that's not true. I think it's a very favorable depiction of LBJ as a man of his times dealing with a very difficult situation. And he had to make the hard choices that, again, reflected the era that he lived in and the different constituents that he had to deal with. There's a great moment in the film where LBJ points out that as an activist, Martin Luther King Jr. has only one cause, where he has a ton of causes that he has to deal with. And I think the film was, in fact, quite sympathetic to LBJ's position. And the way that he and Martin Luther King Jr. kind of do the dance of politics is brilliant to behold. I also want to point out that I think that the reason that it says that LBJ comes to the decision to do what he does in the end, obviously, some people I could see would be like, well, that's not very nice, because he has a conversation with George Wallace, and I don't want to give anything away, but basically, he doesn't do it because it's the right thing. He does it because he doesn't want to be on the wrong side of history. But hey, you know what? That's a very realistic reason to be motivated to do something. And I actually found it quite refreshing to see such stark realism in the depiction of our leadership. And I saw also someone say, oh, this is just going to say Martin Luther King Jr. was a saint. I think this movie is very respectful of him, but it does acknowledge his flaws, particularly a very big one that he has within his family, which, I think another movie maybe wouldn't have gone there. But this one does. And I think it's impressive across the board. And I would say Ava DuVernay, David Oyelowo, very talented here, but the real talent here is DuVernay. And I think that she has the strongest voice of all the creative voice of all the female directors working right now. And if she can avoid going too girly with future projects, and she just continues to make movies that are not gender specific, like Selma, I think she could go all the way. Whereas Catherine Bigelow, kind of faded away after winning her Oscar, and hasn't really continued to work and been someone who contributes to the creative community of filmmaking. I think DuVernay, she didn't get a nomination here, but I'm very excited to see what she does next. So I really recommend that you see this movie. And I can see why, people maybe don't want to see it because, again, the marketing is so bad. And also, this is a hard thing to take, and people have just forgotten about civil rights in general. I think it's appalling that I learned so much from this movie that I should have known beforehand. And I can understand that it's a difficult conversation to have, and that it's people maybe just want to forget that this ever happened, that it was so soon. It was just 50 years ago, basically. But you know what? You don't have to remember it all the time, and we've made progress, and in some ways we haven't. But this movie really shows and underlines that, when you should remember all of this, and you should honor not just Martin Luther King Jr., but his followers on Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And this is a film that I would even go so far as to say should be played every year on Martin Luther King Jr. Day, just as they play the Ten Commandments on Easter. It's that powerful, and I think it's that important. So definitely go and see it. And I hopefully David Oyelowo and particularly Ava DuVernay will get their due on the next go-around. So thank you so much for tuning in. Thank you for your patience in waiting for this review. Please write your own thoughts down below, and you can check out some more episodes right now.